Hello and welcome to this NDTV special which is coming to you live from Gujarat. Now, on Independence Day, when 11 men convicted for the gang rape and murder in the Bilkis Bano case walked out of prison on early release, it sent shockwaves across the country. Images of them being garlanded and fed laddus. Now, while it was clear that the men had been released by a committee set up by the Gujarat government, there was always a degree of confusion as to at what level had their release been cleared, given the extreme nature of their crimes. The answers to that were never forthcoming, because both the Gujarat government and the centre, which is technically supposed to sign off on release of this nature, stonewalled any attempts for details. But now, since the matter went to the Supreme Court, a close to 500-page affidavit filed by the Gujarat government in the Supreme Court has revealed new details, shocking details about how the release of this men was cleared at the highest level and how that release may have, in a sense, ignored objections from, or very serious objections from key stakeholders that were responsible for putting these men away in the first place. So let's look at some of the shockers that have emerged from NDTV's deep dive into these court documents, starting with shocker number one. The centre, it turns out, the Home Ministry no less, did actually approve the release of these 11 men and did so in a manner of just 2 weeks. The Gujarat government wrote to the centre on the 28th of June this year asking if the men could be released. The Home Ministry wrote back on 11th July in just a course of 14 days saying, yes, they could. This one-page note from the Home Ministry cited no reasons for the release of these men. It just simply cleared their release. Shocker number two. This was despite the fact that there was objections both by the CBI, the agency which prosecuted this case and put the men away, as well as the special court in Mumbai which had actually convicted them. The CBI wrote to the Gujarat government saying that the offence committed by them is heinous, grave and serious, and so they shouldn't be released. The special judge said this is the worst form of hate crime and a crime against humanity, and that they do not deserve premature release. And yet they were released. Shocker number three. The Gujarat government in its affidavit has sought to justify the release on grounds that there was good behavior by these men during the time they were in prison and during the time when they were out on parole. But did they ignore crucial red flags in this justification? In fact, the Gujarat government's own court documents suggest that the convicts were issued multiple warnings for parole violations. On a number of occasions, these men came back late from their parole and were warned again and again. Even more seriously, media reports, not just one but several, pointed to how these convicts actually have been accused of threatening and harassing witnesses when they were out on parole. In fact, media reports suggest that there were even FIRs that were lodged against them for this kind of behavior, raising a serious question mark over the defense that they were released on grounds of good behavior. Shocker number four. Despite these heinous charges, and to the point about these men coming out on parole, the court documents show that these men enjoyed thousands of days of freedom in the form of furloughs and in the form of parole. Adding up some of those days puts, in the case of almost all these men, freedoms enjoyed anywhere between the range of 3 to 4.5 years the time they were out of jail. One of them, Ramesh Bhai Chandana, was the maximum. He enjoyed the most number of leaves, clocking in at almost over 4 years if you add all the days up, raising once again questions whether the ground was being set for the release of these men from much earlier. The final shocker, shocker number five, that while releasing the Bilkis rapists, did the Gujarat government, did the police ignore her own protection? During the hearing or during the course of the panel, the panel set up by the Gujarat government to deliberate over the release, one of the judges present asked, what about the security provided to Bilkis and her family when these men were to be released? Police officials gathered at that meeting said that they are still in the process of gathering the evidence about whether or not and how security will be provided to her. But those details apparently never emerged or were certainly not recorded in the minutes of that meeting. nor was the process of releasing these men put on hold in order for security to be provided to Bilkis, her family members, and perhaps other witnesses as well. They went ahead and released them anyway. Now, it's worth noting, as we and others had reported earlier, that even this committee that was set up, serious questions over whether they were in fact fair and neutral, because many of the members of this committee were actually linked to the ruling BJP, including 2 BJP MLAs and several other members who were described in the minutes as social workers but were actually part of the BJP. Now, so far, the centre or the Gujarat government hasn't really responded to all of these questions and all of these controversies. But while today I was on the campaign trail here in Gujarat, where as we know an election is going on, I had a chance to actually interview some of the leaders of the BJP who were part of the campaign. And one of them was Prahlad Joshi, who's the Union Parliamentary Affairs Minister, who I spoke to while he was part of a BJP Gaurav Yatra, where he effectively defended the decision to release these men. Let's listen. Prahlad, but one issue has come up just now, that it has turned out that it was the centre, that is, which opposition has raised, that the centre also cleared the release of these Bilkis rapists in the, in the case that just came out. So how would you defend that? Home Ministry personally cleared it.
No, that is, see, after when having being in prison for some time, there is a provision for that. Accordingly, as per the law, it is done. And there are some jurists in that. It is not that self government alone has taken decision.
But isn't it such a heinous crime? People are saying, how can you release people who've been convicted of gang rape, murder?
No,
a child was also murdered.
After having been in the prison for quite some time, if their behavior on that, there are so many incidents. I don't want to go into detail that.
But do you personally feel it was okay that they were released?
I have said no. When the government and the concerned people have taken decision, I don't want to make any comment on that, and I don't find anything wrong in that, because it is done as per the process of the law.
आप इसको डिफेंड करेंगे? ऐसे इतना बड़ा कांड हो गया और ये लोग बाहर आ गए।
देखिए, 2 चीज होती है किसी भी केस पे, जो कन्विक्टेड जो होता है जितने सालों के लिए तय किया जाता है, उसके बाद राज्य सरकार के पास हर, जैसे कि 2 अक्टूबर होती है, जयंती होती है, 15 अगस्त होती है, उस दिन ऐसे कुछ जो अच्छा व्यवहार किया होता है उन लोगों को छोड़ा जाता है। तो दिस मैटर, मेरा ये मानना है कि इसको जानबूझकर, एक विशेष वर्ग से जुड़ा हुआ है इसलिए कुछ लोगों ने जानबूझकर इसको पूरे देश के भीतर एक अलग तरीके से माहौल बनाने का प्रयास किया। हम ये जरूर मानते हैं,
भाजपा के लोगों ने भी इस पे आपत्ति,
मैं वही बोल रहा हूँ, विशेष वर्ग के जानबूझ के, मैं ये मानता हूँ कि किसी भी अपराधी के साथ प्यारा भरा व्यवहार नहीं हो सकता, उसको सजा मिलनी ही चाहिए। किसी भी, वो कितने साल जेल में रहे, कि क्या उनके साथ व्यवहार हुआ है, उस पर भी बात कहीं ना कहीं होनी चाहिए। और खुल के इस मामले में कोई भी उसको डिफेंड नहीं कर रहा, जो हकीकत है वो सब लोग बोल रहे हैं।
नहीं, लेकिन आप नहीं कहते अल्पेश, जैसे बाकी विपक्ष कह रही है कि भाजपा महिलाओं की बात करती है, लेकिन किसी ऐसे व्यक्ति जो प्रहलाद जी कह रहे हैं कि आपने अगर अपना टाइम सर्व किया वो अलग चीज है, बट ये इस किस्म का इतना ग्रेव क्राइम है, इतना मेजर है कि उस पर किस तरह से छोड़ दिया, उस पर केंद्र सरकार ने भी छुड़ा दिया और स्टेट गवर्नमेंट ने, दोनों ने।
देखिए, जुडिशरी की बात है, बट महिलाओं की बात होती है तो महिलाएं होती हैं, और अगर इस तरह का जो भी कुछ हुआ है, मैं तो उस बात को नहीं मानता, क्योंकि देखिए, अगर आपने कोई क्राइम किया और फिर व्यवहार अच्छा है तो वो बात भी गलत है। और ऐसे लोगों को, जो मैंने देखा कि शर्मनाक बात है कि वो मिठाई बांट रहे थे और इस तरह की बातें कर रहे थे, एक महिला के साथ जो कुछ भी हुआ, मैं तो उस बात को समर्थन नहीं करता। मैं तो ये मानता हूँ कि जितने भी दोषी हैं उनको कड़े से कड़े सजा मिलनी चाहिए, और इसको किसी जाति या धर्म से नहीं छोड़ना चाहिए। वो महिला के साथ हुआ है तो महिला को न्याय पूरी तरह से मिलना चाहिए।
Alright, so the union minister there saying that doesn't see anything wrong, but one of his own BJP colleagues, Alpesh Thakur, there saying that he cannot abide or cannot accept the release of these men. All right, let's go across to panel. We have with us Pramila Nesargi with us. She's both an advocate and a member of the BJP. We have Amiben Yagnik with us of the Congress party, who's in fact from Gujarat. But let me first start with Vrinda Grover, lawyer and someone who's also been tracking this particular case very closely. Vrinda Grover, what do you make of this? I mean, is this something which can be defended as saying that this is justified because it was followed as per the law, as the minister says? Or is this something which is more in the realm of something that is morally and ethically unjustifiable? Because remember, now we have so many details from the affidavit itself, which raises serious questions about how these men walked out.
Yeah, I'll stick to the law first. I think the documents that are now before us, with the state of Gujarat and the union have placed before the court, make it amply clear that this decision is legally flawed. It is not in compliance with the Code of Criminal Procedure, which sets out a very clear scheme. And Section 432 requires compliance. Then there are judgments of the Supreme Court, which say how those sections are to be interpreted. You have listed the shockers. Those are all actually illegalities. According to me, because of those illegalities, this remission order is totally wrong in law. We'll come to the point about decency and morality later. Insofar as the approval is concerned, as you had mentioned, the court, the CBI court, has in very strong terms said this is a crime, a hate crime. It's a crime against society. And the society is aggrieved by the nature of this crime, and therefore they are not entitled to remission. So did the CBI, the investigating and prosecuting agency. Why do these two become very critical, particularly in a case of this nature? We know that even at that time, the investigation as well as the trial had to be handed outside the state of Gujarat because the Supreme Court felt that there would be no impartiality. Therefore, their opinion is crucial. We have judgments of the Supreme Court. There are two judgments. One, the Sriharan judgment, then a judgment of Justice Chandrachud, Ramchandar versus State of Chhattisgarh. It is a 2022 judgment, which says that Section 432, subsection 2 of the Code of Criminal Procedure, which requires the judge's view to be taken into account, is not just one of the relevant factors.
Okay.
It's determinative. Sriharan says it will guide the state, it will shine light. Therefore, once you have that view, what does the state say? There is not a single document which will reveal to you in a 447-page counter affidavit that once you had two authorities saying no, how did you depart from that? How did you reconcile that diversion, that variance of view? And the best part is the concurrence given by the union government. It is the most cryptic, non-speaking, bereft of reason order, which simply says to convey the concurrence/approval of the central government under Section 435 for premature release and list the names of the 11. There is no other reason. So we see that the state government and the central government concurs. Nobody is saying, what about this view? And that is mandatory under the law.
Okay, let me bring in Pramila Nesargi here. Pramila Nesargi, this is the big question. That in a way these documents have told us at what level the clearance happened, but it still hasn't told us how. How did these men get released when you have the CBI which put them away, saying that you cannot release them is a heinous crime? The special court says this is a crime against humanity, and yet it gets released, and you have a minister here on the campaign trail in Gujarat saying he sees no objection to it.
I do not want to go behind this law, because the matter is pending before the Supreme Court. It is there, it will take its own time to examine this. What because I am with every one of this country. When I say it, your blood begins to boil when you hear the Bano's case, Bilkis Bano's case. We were all worried about it. When the matter was being tried and when they were convicted, we were all very, very happy. Even now I stand that they deserved that and they were convicted. Now the question is, after the conviction, whether the rules of remission apply. And if so, whether rules of remission has been framed properly, whether it has come to scrutiny before the Supreme Court at any time, whether these rules which has been framed either by the central government or by the Gujarat government has not been tested in any court of law, whether they were properly done or not. This is the time when time has come. Now the Supreme Court will examine and see whether rules are intact,
Yes,
whether it deserves to be amended, whether it is not deserved. That's a matter to be decided. Yes, they have to examine. And if it requires some amendment to be done, it is good that it has to be done in a case like this, whether they could be released or not. That is the thing which has to be examined.
No, but what is
now
your,
we are
what
in a
is your
position
view?
after conviction
hold on.
of.
No.
I'm just.
Ma'am, I'm asking you. You're a. I'm saying. I'm asking you.
Before the court, we are.
It's not.
I am telling you.
Hold on, ma'am.
Whether under the rules.
I'm not asking you about specifically the rules.
Hear me.
Ma'am, I'm asking you. Ma'am, just a second.
Whether they have been released
if
properly.
the CBI, ma'am, just a second. Ma'am, I'm asking you. That is a matter that will get when you have on record now.
Tell me.
CBI saying heinous crime, when the special court is saying crime against humanity. This is not about saying people can't be released early, but in such a situation, do you think that it was justified for these men to be released? Are you okay with it?
I am not telling you. I did not tell you that it is justified or not. I am only telling you whether they were justified in being released contrary to the rules, whether rules permit, and if the rules do not permit. I am just telling you, opinions differ. CBI might have given a report. Say what happened in the Supreme Court matter. Two judges differed. Each one had their own opinion.
You're not answering my question directly. I have to
CBI
move
might
on.
have had the opinion.
Okay.
Supreme Court, they
All right, Ami Yagnik. Okay, I need to move on. Ami Yagnik, the fact is that you will have a Rahul Gandhi tweet. Seen earlier also when all this happened, when these men were released, there was a tweet, some kind of outrage on social media. But the fact is that just at the level of what has happened, the news that these men are released, happens to be in Gujarat, getting into an election, we see otherwise a complete silence by the Congress on this. Imagine if there was a reverse situation, a Congress ruled state would have released level men convicted of this kind of crime, what would the other side have done? And look at what the Congress is doing or rather not doing. How do we read this peculiar silence?
No, there is no silence. I am the one who had a press conference on the very next day in Gujarat, in the Gujarati language as well as Hindi, and we had all the women organization, women party workers go to district level and bring this out in the open. Now, if that press conference, I mentioned very clearly that this kind of a coordinated effort by the central government and silence of the central government and the Home Ministry, what is it telling? Have you considered who are these people who sat on the committee on the very next day without even looking at, because the order was not uploaded? I pointed out this fact to the people of our state. At that point of time, whether the victims' protection, security, safety, was anybody important heard, was anybody relevant heard by the committee, and why en masse all 11 were out for good behavior? See, I think we do not want to take the issue of a political point because we are talking of elections. The country, this is affecting the country, Srinivas.
I'm saying it is not necessarily even, I'm saying not necessarily for an election. I'm saying beyond the press conference and a tweet, where is it an issue that is being raised on the ground? Okay, but Pramila Nasarki, if I can come back to you, because at the end of the day, okay, you claim you are Pramila Nasarki. The point is that when the BJP claims to say that we are in favor of we are women, we protect women, all of that. Right? And then you have this. You have right from the bottom, a panel made up of BJP members clears the release of these men. It is cleared by the BJP-run Gujarat government. It is cleared by the BJP government at the center. Surely there's a question mark over how you resolve that or how you reconcile that with the claims that the BJP protects or is concerned about women and their safety.
I am one for safety of the women. Even now I say the security and safety of the family is a must. They must take care of it. They cannot ignore, come what may. Whatever may be the remission order, whatever they must be protected, and all protection must be given to ladies and their family members. That apart, what I am telling you is, when the law is before the court, when some rules or regulations, when it is lacking in something, it is high time that it must be amended. If they have done it within the four corners of that remission rules, it requires amendment. In a case like this, if I were, I would not have released. I am just telling you, I wouldn't have allowed it to be released. I won't.
Okay.
Strict rules are necessary in a case like this, and the law requires to be amended in this way.
Okay, Vrinda.
I would never have released.
Vrinda Grover wants to intervene. Yes.
Yeah.
All
I
right.
don't think any
Vrinda Grover, yes.
I don't think any amendments are required in the rules. So we can stop amending the law, because we have to concentrate on the executive, which is now exercising its discretion and its power. This discretion and executive action is malified, it is arbitrary, it is partisan, and the papers, their stench goes far and deep. We can stop talking about amendment of rules, and we can stop talking about safety, security, etc., because these are hollowed out words in India now. All those who are standing by these regimes need to ask sharper questions. What we need to understand here, and we are speaking on a panel with two other lawyers senior to me. What is the assumption on which the criminal justice system works? That the state will represent society, the state will act on behalf of the victim. That is not taking place. And when that doesn't take place, the entire system collapses. And that is what we are seeing today as a result. The BJP, in no statement, public or otherwise, including its written statements, including the legislations it passes, it stands for harsh punishment. It stands for death sentence. I am against all that in principle and in every single case. Suddenly we are hearing them talk about reform. Do they think we don't understand what is happening? When the state acts and selects people arbitrarily, it acts with malice, it acts malified. And women of this country, all of us, can read here. So today we have in court, and yes, the matter is before the court. I am representing some of the petitioners before the Honorable Supreme Court. We have in court the accused counsel and the state speaking in one voice, saying all these petitioners should be thrown out. The state is not standing up on behalf of the women. The state is not standing up on behalf of the victim.
Okay,
this
let me...
is contrary to the law.
All right, let me just get a last word.
Remission.
Okay. Will you, Pramila Nisargi, as a member of the BJP, speak up within your party to say that this is something that should not have happened?
I agree with you. We always discuss within our party and also bring to the notice we are not agreeable for all these things. We request the government at appropriate time to amend these things. I, for one, would say this could not have happened. These rules could not have been framed in this way.
Has it been an embarrassment?
I know. I was talking, hearing the lady. I'm just telling you. What happened. There is no question of embarrassment. The law is like that. We do not know what did people do of this country so far as when Nupur Sharma was harassed? Is there anyone, whether any of these lady advocates come forward to say why they have not done?
No.
Why she is also a lady? Nupur Sharma was also a lady. When they got equal, what did you people do? You did not rise to the occasion.
Okay, that is not now something you want to get into because we don't have time for what about
safeguard the lady.
Okay, all right. Okay, this is not the time for whataboutery, but let's see whether all these revelations coming out is going to alter the conversation around this shocking turn of events. But that's all the time we have. Thank you so much for watching our special broadcast on NDTV. Thank you so much for joining us. Good night.